This is how I create my tissue paper flowers. I buy tissue paper from the dollar store, I use a cereal box for a template, and freehand draw my template out. Here I'm creating the large petal. I use as much of the length of the tissue paper, the way that it comes folded from the package, as much as I can. Next I'm going to make the medium petal. I use the same template as the large, but just create a shorter length. The small petal I just freehand draw. It doesn't need to be perfect. I prefer it imperfect because it gives a more unique look to it. Next I'm cutting out the medium petal. There are 10 sheets per package and I cut all 10 pieces at the same time. Then I create stacks of 5, 2 sets of 5 for the small petal, the medium petal, and the large petal. The first set of 5 you just scrunch, grab some masking tape, nothing special, and I start piecing it together. The middle is kind of the hardest part, the first one. I try and overlap each petal as I go along to give it a bit of shape and volume. The scrunching of the tissue paper creates the volume. Once you've got the 5 petals together, twist it at the bottom and then wrap your masking tape around. Next, grab the next set of small petals, scrunch them. Again, nothing fancy, just scrunch them. Have your masking tape ready to go for when you need to tape. And I extend the next row of petals a little bit beyond the first row and overlap each petal to the next. I prefer to work with my flower upside down. I just find it easier because then I can see exactly where I'm overlapping. And once the petals are all together, you tape them up and we're on to the next. Grab your medium petal and grab 5 of those. I like to get them all my bundles ready to go so it goes a bit quicker. So I've got 10 laid out for me. Scrunch those ones as well. Nothing fancy. Then get your masking tape ready to go. Grab your flower and again extend the petals slightly beyond the center so that you are creating a larger flower each time as you go along. Take each of the petals one by one, overlap them slightly to give you the volume that you need. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. You get these beautiful flowers once you're done. If you're finding that the middle of the flowers are a bit flat, if you scrunch it a bit more, it'll help. You can also take a glue gun if you're finding the petals aren't staying perfectly in place. I glue some of the petals in place so that they aren't too floppy. The tissue paper is very thin. It's not very forgiving. It does rip easily. And so if it does happen, grab your glue gun and fix it. Here again, I've got my 4th layer going. These are the medium petals, and I've got 2 large petals left to do to create the entire flower. You could keep going, but I find the bigger it gets, the floppier it becomes. Next, I grab my large petals. I grab 2 sets of 5 petals each. And again, I scrunch each petal just to give it some shape as I'm making the flower. Extend each of these petals just a little bit beyond the last layer. Overlap each petal as you go around. I find once the flower gets a bit bigger, it's easier to see where you're overlapping, and it allows you to shape the flower a bit better. Grab your masking tape once you've got the next layer done. Actually twist it a little bit all together and then grab your masking tape and tape it around. I tend to use shorter pieces and use multiple shorter pieces rather than one long piece because if it sticks to the tissue paper, you could make a bit of a mess, which you really don't want to do once you get towards the end of the flower. This is the last set. Scrunch your petals, prepare your masking tape, and find where, and again, overlap each petal. Extend the petal a little bit beyond the flower so that it creates a little bit of a bigger flower. Extend or overlap each petal with the next. And that's really it. Pretty straightforward. Again, if the larger petals are starting to flop, take your glue gun, glue the pieces in place, and that is it. Mount it to whatever you want to mount it to with a zip tie, more masking tape, duct tape, whatever is easiest. It's pretty simple and pretty forgiving. And if you really make a mess of it, it's only tissue paper from the dollar store, so it's not that expensive to replace. And here's the paper flower finished.